Hey guys, Jay here, and this is my F1 fantasy team for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Let's get into it. So first of all, I went up in rankings this weekend for all three teams. Wasn't the best weekend, but still went up in rankings. I did play no negative just to be safe because of the weather. That said, for team one, I traded out Isaac Hadjar, and I wanted to bring in Lance Stroll just because it was going to be wet. Unfortunately, I was just 0.1 million short. 0.5 million short for Ocon, and so fortunately I had to look further down the barrel, and I went with Pierre Gasly because I was hoping to get a price rise. Otherwise I would have gone with either Bortoleto or Lawson, but I went with Gasly trying to get a price rise. Thankfully, because of no negative, I didn't get any negative points. That being said, compared to if I had have got Lance Stroll, I technically lost out on 3 points and 1.2 million in budget. However, I did gain a point by bringing in Gasly for Hadjar, and thanks to no negative, I saved 24 points. So I was able to move up 5,500 places. For Team 2, I decided to trade out Esteban Ocon for Lance Stroll because I could afford him, and this time it would pay off. I got 277 points with a 3.3 million budget gain. Bringing in Lance Stroll for Esteban Ocon gave me 6 points, and again climbed the rankings by 1,500 places. And so the difference in having Lance Stroll compared to if I kept Esteban Ocon was I gained those 6 points and also gained 0.4 million in budget. For Team 3, I traded out Gabriel Bortoleto and I brought in Oliver Bearman. I was setting up for Limitless for Hungary, and in this case came away with 261 points, 3.3 million gain. No difference in points, Bearman for Bortoleto. They both scored 7 points, so there was no impact there. But I did change my ×2 from Norris to Piastri, and that gained me 3 extra points. And again, climbed the rankings by just over 1,000 places. Now, if you ran a Limitless team with triple McLaren, triple Ferrari, and Verstappen, you would have come away with 386 points. If you played a triple McLaren, triple kick build with Alonso and the ×3 chip, ×3 on Piastri, ×2 on Norris, you would have come away with 342 points with a 2.5 million budget gain. Same with the chips. On the elite data, we can see that on the Global 500, 25.2% of teams ran no negative, with 8.6% running ×3 and 3.8% running the Limitless chip. And in the Patreon 500, it was pretty much similar. 24.1% ran no negative, 7.2% ran the ×3, and Limitless was 3%. So overall, mostly teams played no negative this past weekend. Early thoughts. I'm now in a position where all three teams have free transfers, which is good. So does that mean I can now go for that 4 premium asset build? Well, I'm still of the opinion that I would like Piastri, Russell, McLaren and Ferrari. So unfortunately, all my teams, the answer is no. So team 1, I'm way too short. I've only got 0.5 million in the bank. I could go for Russell, Mercedes and then bring in Bortoleto, but again, just don't think it's worth it. I'm going to get to that in a minute. For team 2, I have a bit more budget, but as you can see, I'm still at least 1.5 million, if not 2 million short for that last bottom of the barrel driver. Again, could go for Mercedes. That way I could bring in Hadjar and Bortoleto. Just don't think it's worth it. And then finally, team 3. Again, I'm too short. I've got 2.5 million in the bank, so I'm a couple of million short. Again, Russell, Mercedes, Hadjar, Bortoleto. But the reason why I say it's not worth it is because if we look at the statistics, Ferrari, even though on average it's only about 9 points difference, in terms of consistency, it's a big difference. So since Monaco, Ferrari have scored 71 points, 61 points in Spain, 57 points in Canada, 67 points in Austria, 41 points in Britain, 70 points this past weekend in Spa, whereas Mercedes have only scored 9 points in Monaco, 24 points in Spain, 87 in Canada to be fair, but 19 in Austria, 7 in Britain, and they did get 50 points this past weekend, but again, I'm just looking at the consistency, and that's why I just don't think having Mercedes is worth it. Now, that being said, I could drop to Antonelli in order to keep Ferrari, but unfortunately, again, it's a similar thing. So I would still rather have Russell than Antonelli because it's against the consistency. Russell is on average 22.3 points, 3 points in Monaco, 21 points in Spain, 47 points in Canada, 22 points in Austria, 8 points in Britain, 19 points in Spa. When you compare that to Antonelli, it's a big difference because Antonelli is only on 8.7 points on average. He got a -2 in Monaco, -12 in Spain, 35 in Canada to be fair, -18 in Austria, -16 in Britain, and 21 points this past weekend in Spa. So for me, I would rather Ferrari over Mercedes, and I would rather Russell over Antonelli. If that means I have to keep building budget, then so be it. Now, with that said, let's look at the budget builder. Now, for your Tier A drivers, it's pretty obvious, your usuals, Piastri, Norris. Hamilton is also in there now if you've got a bit less budget. 0 points for a 0.1 rise, 22 points for a 0.3 rise. But otherwise, you are looking at the 2 McLaren drivers. Hungary is a low overtaking track, so there's not going to be as many points on offer. And in terms of the constructors, again, for your TAs, it's your usual suspects, McLaren, Ferrari. Red Bull is an option, but I personally wouldn't touch them just because Yuki, even though there was some improvement this past weekend, they're still just not going to be as good, especially with Ferrari getting fastest pit stop points this season as well. So you definitely want McLaren, and ideally Ferrari's second Tier A constructor. I mean, Mercedes I wouldn't even consider anyway, just because they need 35 points for a 0.3 rise or 12 points for a 0.1. That said, with the Tier A constructors, we are looking at points rather than budget, but I'm just throwing it out there. Now with the Tier B drivers, which is where most of our budget is coming from, it's slim pickings again this time around. So Hülkenberg, Stroll and Bearman, I would say, are probably must-haves for the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm a little bit shaky on Stroll. I'm not too comfortable having him in my team, but when you compare what they need, -6 for a 0.2, 2 points for a 0.6, again, low overtaking track, all he needs is 2 positions gained, for example, and he'll get those 2 points. Now, Albon has sprung up into 4th place. He needs 3 points for a 0.2, 13 points for a 0.6, but at 10.6 million, he's too expensive in my opinion. That being said, he is carrying a 12 and a 14 points wise, so that the 14 points from Spa will carry over into Zandvoort. So we'll see. Whereas Hülkenberg, Stroll and Bearman are on 7 and 9 points, which they'll carry into Hungary because the 45, 22 and 14 will drop off. So we could actually see Albon possibly rise to the top if he has a good result in Hungary. But again, at 10.6 million, I just think is too expensive. Alonso, unfortunately, didn't have a great weekend. So he's starting to fall for me. He needs 8 points for a 0.2, 14 for a 0.6. I don't see him getting 14 points. I don't think I see him getting 8 points, but we'll see. And then from Sainz down, I'll be honest, in terms of building budget, I just don't think they're going to meet their targets. Obviously, Lawson is on the price floor. Colapinto is on the price floor. Bortoletto is pretty much on the price floor at 4.7. So they are options if you want to protect your budget. But otherwise, I think Hülkenberg, Stroll and Bearman. And then, honestly, for that last Tier B slot, it's either someone like a Lawson to protect your budget, or just go with who you think is going to get you the most points, just knowing that you're going to lose a little bit of budget with them. It's going to be weighing out how much you make versus how much you lose, if that makes sense. With the Tier B constructors, however, we have a new leading Tier B constructor that is the Aston Martin. They need a -14 for a 0.6 and -24 for a 0.2. However, Kick still only need a -6 for a 0.6 and -14 for a 0.2. Points wise though, Aston Martin have I would say outscored on average. So 33 points compared to 14 points in round 12, 20 points compared to 24 points in round 13. However, again, when we head to Zandvoort in the Netherlands, the 33 and 14 will drop off, so Kick will effectively be top dog again if the teams have a fairly even weekend. Otherwise, HAAS, I'm not saying HAAS isn't an option, but I wouldn't look at HAAS just because of the 25 points dropping off. Williams have got 27 points that they'll have going into the Netherlands, but 14.9 million, just too expensive for me. And Alpine and VCarb I wouldn't consider. So where does that leave me with my teams? Well, I would like to get rid of Gasly, to be completely honest. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to afford Stroll. So what I could do is offload Alonso as well. I could then bring in Lance Stroll and then possibly Lawson, just to protect my budget. Maybe stretch to Bortoletto, spending slightly more, but it would depend on how they do. I think right now, just to protect budget, probably Lawson. But let's see, I've got 5.6. In terms of going for someone with points, I haven't really got any options. So literally my options are Bortoletto, Lawson, Colapinto. So I would say, yeah, Lawson or Bortoletto would be my picks right now. That would be 2 transfers, so I would still have 3 transfers going into Zandvoort. So I'm not totally against dropping Alonso, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, Lawson or Bortoletto right now. But the main one would be to bring in Lance Stroll for Fernando Alonso, again, just because he has, in theory, more chance of going up in budget. For Team 2, if Alonso does really well, then maybe I keep him just for points. But otherwise, similar story. I've got 8.1 here. So let's see if we go down to the bottom. I mean, I could look to someone like a Sainz for points. I mean, mind you, hasn't been great lately. It's probably not. Let's see, Hadjar, again, negative last 2 weekends. Unfortunately, Gasly, I just can't trust the Alpine. I just don't think I can trust the Alpine now. I think twice this season I've brought in Gasly and it's just backfired. I kind of had no choice. Well, I did have a choice, but he was like the best chance of me getting a budget rise in spite of Team 1. But yeah, I just don't know about Gasly, but then we'll see. So a similar story really. If I do drop Alonso, again, Lawson's protect budget or Bortoletto. But again, I would be keeping Stroll just because he's got more chance of a rise. I would also keep Behrman because he needs 1 point for a 0.2, 9 points for a 0.6. So yeah, I would yeah, it'd be a case of this plus either someone to protect my budget or someone who looks good for points. That's, a cheap asset. Now for Team 3, the plan at the moment is to play Limitless, but that could change because unfortunately there could be more rain. But let's just assume that I do go to play the Limitless ship. Then obviously we'll be dropping Kick, Behrman, Alonso. We will be dropping Hulkenberg after this past weekend, but who knows? Like, I'm not against Hulkenberg in a Limitless team, but let's be a little bit more sensible. For me, it would definitely be Ferrari at the moment. Lewis is good around Hungary. Verstappen, again, it's Verstappen, and then it'd be out of Russell and Leclerc for me, depending on who do as well. Right now, I'd probably favour Leclerc, just because I don't know about the reliability of the Mercedes cars, but it would be Russell or Leclerc in that limitless team with the triple McLaren, at least a double Ferrari, and of course Max Verstappen. Now that being said, if I decide not to play the limitless chip, which is going to fault my plans, because obviously the longer we leave it, the more we're going to lose out long term. Again, I'd keep Hulk. It would just be Alonso. I'll be honest. It would just be Alonso probably. Again, let's see. I've got 6.9 million. So yeah, let me just sort this out by value. So pretty much every team's in the same boat. I mean, if Hadjar looks good, then maybe take a punt on Hadjar just for the points. Same as Sainz. Gasly, as I said, I don't know if I trust the Alpine. Otherwise, it's the usual. It's Lawson or Bortoletto, really. Now, the other option here would be: do I kick? Do I kick? Or do I keep kick? Probably. I'll be honest. I think I prefer kick over Aston Martin right now. But let's just say I do decide to get rid of kick, then we're probably looking at Aston Martin. Let's see, they're on 175 points overall compared to 193 for kick. Let's see, 31, 24, 33, 20. Kick 26, 46, 14, 24. I mean, Aston Martin probably are actually more consistent right now, to be honest, with points. So maybe take a punt on Aston Martin if they look good in practice. But again, it would just be 2 transfers. And so again, I would have free transfers going into Zandvoort. So let's talk chips. So as I say, for Team 3, I am thinking of using Limitless. That being said, it could potentially rain, and we'll get to the weather in a bit. So Limitless at the moment for me is on the table, but may change. Wildcard, I would say, is on the table if you've now got the budget for a build of like McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, at least Russell. Then if you need to use your wildcard to do that, then I would say it's worth it. That being said, if like me, you've already used your wildcard for most of your teams, so Team 1, Team 2, in my case, I've already used it, then you're going to have to plan ahead. Final fix for me is only an option if, you know, someone takes a grid penalty or there's some chaos in qualifying. But otherwise, I'm not really thinking about final fix right now. And for no negative, again, if it rains, if it's bad, something to consider. Otherwise, autopilot extra DRS just ain't on the table for me, at least until the next sprint race. So we've got 3 more sprint races. We've got, I believe, Kota, Brazil, and Qatar, I think. And so I personally was thinking yesterday that I would probably be thinking extra DRS in Kota and autopilot in Brazil or Qatar. But I was watching someone, forgive me, I can't remember which content creator it was. I was watching someone the other day who was thinking that they, if I heard correctly, wouldn't play extra DRS or autopilot in Brazil. And I kind of understand that because it could be, you know, it could be bad weather. That being said, I do think there could be a lot of points on the table for Brazil. I mean, it's early days, we'll have to wait and see, but definitely autopilot and extra DRS for me isn't until I've got the 4A team, if possible, and at least Kota, Brazil, or Qatar, the 3 sprint races. Now, if you're here in the UK, we're back to a standard weekend, 3 practice sessions. So practice 1 is at 12:30 on Friday, with practice 2 at 4 o'clock. Then on Saturday, practice 3 is at 11:30 in the morning, with qualifying at 3 in the afternoon, and then race at 2 o'clock on Sunday. So we're back to the normal, looking your teams before qualifying, so after practice 3 on Saturday. And then weather-wise, as I said, it could potentially rain. So at the moment on AccuWeather, Friday is dry, Saturday is dry, but then on Sunday, 72% chance, bright periods with a few showers. Now obviously it depends when these showers are. I haven't looked at the hourly thing as of yet, but I'm just throwing it out there. I'm hoping the rain will move on, especially after given this weekend. Just on that, I know a lot of people have complained that, you know, their no negative was kind of wasted this weekend in Spa because of what happened with the race direction. I don't regret playing no negative in there. We can't control what the race director decides to do, and let's be fair, you know, a driver did die a few years ago at Spa. You know, it is a dangerous track. So maybe over the course, just yes. I was one of those that was frustrated, thinking, great, you know, I was hoping to get a little bit of rain, a little bit of chaos for my no negative to make that big difference. But F1 fantasy aside, I don't regret playing no negative, and as frustrating as it was, I kind of get the race direction to a degree. I'm not saying I fully agree with it. It should have started earlier, but at the start I agreed with it. So your top 10 for last year at the Hungarian Grand Prix was Oscar Piastri, ahead of Lando Norris. As we know, Lando Norris letting us go through for team reasons. Hamilton in 3rd in Mercedes, Leclerc 4th, Verstappen finished 5th, Sainz in 6th, Perez 7th, Russell 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Stroll in 10th. One thing to note, George Russell got the fastest lap with a 1 minute 20.3 seconds, and Lance Stroll finishing 10th is interesting, actually. Let's hope he can do that again, especially if we're having our team to get that price rise. And finally, guys, GridRivals. So I think I had a good weekend. I scored 989 points. I was about 120 points short of top teams, I think. I don't think I've moved in ranking, but in terms of points, it was good. I got a 2.1 million budget rise. I had Hulkenberg, Norris, Verstappen, Bortoletto, Stroll and Ferrari. I'm pretty sure I've got 1 or 2 assets that are going to be out of contract. I want to say right now that that is going to be possibly Stroll. I think Stroll is definitely out of contract. Not sure about everyone else. Possibly Hulkenberg, because I've had him for a while. And possibly Ferrari. But yeah, no, I can't complain. A good weekend in GridRivals. Just unfortunately, everyone else seemed to have a good weekend. So I didn't really climb the rankings. And so that's it from me, guys. That's it for my Hungarian Grand Prix team thoughts. Thank you for watching. Good luck for Hungary, and I'll speak to you soon.